A little over 10 years ago, I returned home to an unexpected and emotionally jarring situation. My wife was moving me out. Despite our strained relationship, I was completely caught off guard by this turn of events. Adding to the turmoil, I was served with a protection order dictating that I couldn't return home or see my children without prior written consent, essentially putting all contact through my wife and enforcing a 90-day ban. This news left me utterly devastated. Fortuitously, a family member connected me with an exceptional lawyer who was an absolute force to be reckoned with. Her legal acumen and no-nonsense approach were remarkable. While she swiftly filed a rebuttal against the protection order, she pragmatically informed me that these legal processes take time, warning that it was improbable to face a judge before the 90-day duration lapsed. Her counsel was crystal clear. I had to adhere meticulously to the court's directives. Any deviation would make my stance precarious if my ex-wife opted to extend the order. However, life doesn't always follow the script of court orders. Only a day passed before my now ex-wife urgently required my assistance with the kids. Homeless due to the sudden upheaval, I had been crashing at a friend's place and had no alternative residence to host my children. Reluctantly, we agreed that I would supervise the kids at our former home. I conscientiously positioned myself a few blocks away, awaiting the crucial permission via email as stipulated in the court order. On 2 subsequent occasions within that initial week, a similar scenario unfolded, me patiently waiting nearby while reminding my ex-wife of the legal constraints before I could step foot into the house. Realizing this couldn't be a sustainable pattern, I conveyed to her my decision not to relocate until the awaited email granting permission arrived, even if it meant remaining at my temporary accommodation about 20 minutes away. To reinforce this commitment, I sent a reminder via text, emphasizing the necessity of abiding by the court's terms. The very next day, I found myself in a similar predicament as the prior days. Despite the pending need to pick up my kids for school, given their school's proximity to my workplace, I hadn't received the crucial written permission. Consequently, time slipped away, and the logistics of navigating both their school drop-off and my job became untenable. Understandably upset, my ex-wife called, irate over my absence. I reiterated the necessity of abiding by the court-mandated permission and explained the practical constraints of time that day. Her frustration led to her arriving late at her workplace. In an attempt to resolve the recurrent issue, she proposed granting me blanket permission to come and go as required, a proposition my lawyer strongly advised against. It was imperative to adhere strictly to the court order, irrespective of convenience or mutual agreement. The culmination of these incidents unfolded a few weeks later when, once again, the written permission failed to materialize. On this occasion, her boyfriend, who incidentally turned out to be her direct supervisor, a fact unbeknownst to me, was staying over without his vehicle. Their joint need to reach their respective workplaces left them in a bind. In a scramble, my ex had to call a coworker to fetch and transport the kids to school, inadvertently exposing the situation to their workplace grapevine. Subsequently, within a week, her boyfriend faced termination due to their relationship, and my ex was suspended from her job. At this juncture, I had established my own residence, which allowed the kids to stay with me more regularly. Later revelations unveiled that the initial idea behind the protection order had originated from her boyfriend. This unforeseen turn of events served as compelling evidence that I posed no threat to her or our family. Consequently, during the settlement discussions for support and parenting time, the judge rebuked her sternly, terming the situation as intentional and harmful parental alienation. Her actions, which had backfired drastically, resulted in a harsh reprimand from the court. Part 2. 10 years ago, my then-wife, now my ex-wife, initiated a relationship with another man, resulting in my eviction from our home. This boyfriend played a pivotal role in orchestrating my removal and devising strategies to keep me distanced from my own children. Since then, I've harbored a deep resentment towards him. Despite this, I maintained a facade of politeness and respect towards him, acknowledging his impending role as a stepfather to my kids. However, I vowed that if ever an opportunity arose, I would seek retribution, initially considering something trivial. But fate presented me with a perfect chance to exact revenge, and for nearly 3 weeks, I've been capitalizing on it. Currently, my children are mostly grown, with some attending university while others are in grades 11 to 12. The university-bound kids reside with me, whereas those in high school still split their time between their mothers and my place. Meanwhile, I've remarried. My wife and I each possess our own vehicles, but she owns and insures a minivan specifically for family outings. The kids also have permission to use it, considering only one of them has a car. However, as we possess only one set of keys, I have fixed an AirTag to the minivan, an ingenious little device designed for tracking its location in case the keys went missing. Approximately 3 weeks ago, one of my older kids took the van for an evening but ended up staying overnight at their mom's place, crashing on the couch. The next morning around 7 a.m., another child requested to use the van. Curious about its whereabouts, I pinged the AirTag, only to discover that it was located several hours away in an industrial area of a different town. Naturally, I became deeply concerned about why my child was in such a remote location. I dialed his number, and true to his word, he was at his mom's place as he had claimed. Surprisingly, he was unaware of the van's disappearance. Without delay, I contacted the authorities, disclosing the precise location of the van. Remarkably swift, the police intercepted the van within 20 minutes, only to discover that the driver, who alleged having permission to utilize the vehicle, turned out to be none other than my ex-wife's boyfriend. Initially disinterested in detaining him, the police proposed allowing him to return the van to our town for a more straightforward resolution. However, considering the unauthorized usage of a vehicle not under his name on the insurance policy, I insisted that the van be impounded. In Canada, while we can't press charges, I vehemently stressed that this constituted theft and demanded resolution. As the individual was stranded out of town without transportation, the police ultimately detained him, perhaps for the sake of expediency. They furnished me with the impound yard's information. Given our available time the following day, my wife and I made the trip to the impound yard to retrieve the van. Upon arrival, I initially inspected the exterior, noticing no visible damage despite the van sitting lower than usual. However, a thorough check of the interior revealed an unexpected load: industrial fasteners and cables, materials used in seismic mitigation. To my surprise, it emerged that boyfriend had utilized my wife's van for work-related errands. In response, my wife abruptly turned on her heels and made her way to the yard office. Hastening to catch up, I witnessed her inquire about who had access to the van. With only one set of keys between her and me, she insisted on ensuring that no one else could gain entry. Understanding her intent, I directed the yard personnel to strictly limit access to the van, handing them a $35 tip as assurance. They vowed to secure the van in an enclosed area within the yard. Consequently, despite our visit, we departed without the van, leaving it secured in the impound yard while ensuring that no further access would be granted to anyone else apart from us. We hadn't even settled in from our long drive when the first message arrived from boyfriend, inquiring about retrieving the equipment. Swiftly, I explained that we left the van due to expenses we weren't willing to cover: towing charges, impound fees, and daily storage costs. I made it clear that he needed to settle these bills before I even considered retrieving the van. Understandably irate, he vehemently pledged to reimburse me, but I firmly declined. Shortly after, his boss called, urgently needing the equipment for a time-sensitive job. I calmly conveyed that the van was impounded, making it impossible for me to retrieve it until the following week, reiterating the prerequisite of upfront payment. However, the boss erupted in anger, prompting me to draw a line against such mistreatment and abruptly end the call. I then blocked both him and his company across all platforms of communication. For the past 3 weeks, I've managed to concoct excuses every time boyfriend attempted to arrange picking up the van, often due to the kids needing transportation, leaving me no option but to drive them myself. The boss attempted contact through alternate numbers and inundated me with emails, all of which I ignored except for one reply. In that response, I reiterated our need for approximately 4 hours to make the round trip and emphasized the necessity of upfront payment, considering the accumulating costs: $25 daily for secure storage, towing, and impound fees, alongside compensation for the fuel used by boyfriend and the travel expenses incurred by my wife and me. We had previously agreed upon the standard rate of 58 cents per kilometer, and consequently, the boss transferred the total cost of our driving. At this juncture, the van had been on one trip while our car had made 2. The combined expenses tallied close to $600. Finally, on that Friday, the long-anticipated moment arrived. Accompanied by my wife, we made the trip to pick up the van, which had been prepaid and was awaiting release. As a gesture of goodwill, I dropped off a dozen beers at the office while collecting the keys. However, I had no intentions of transporting the belongings of the boss and boyfriend. Instead, I arranged for the items to be retained at the yard, treated in the same manner as a vehicle, unloaded them, and departed just before the weekend closure. Shortly thereafter, I received a call from boyfriend inquiring about retrieving the items using a work truck. I calmly informed him that the belongings were still at the impound, nearly 2 hours away, and that the office would reopen on Monday at 9 a.m. Following a stretch of silence on the other end, I ended the call after about 10 seconds. Throughout this ordeal, my ex has been providing me with intermittent updates. Our relationship has improved, and she expressed her fury towards boyfriend, explicitly stating that he bore full responsibility for any ensuing consequences. Despite managing to retain his job, boyfriend faced repercussions, a missed pay increase, and forfeiture of his year-end bonus. My ex clarified that due to a critical shortage of staff, termination wasn't an option, but he found himself in a precarious position both at home and in the workplace. No information emerged regarding potential criminal charges related to the van's unauthorized use, as the legal aspect would be handled by the Crown, and I opted against pursuing civil litigation. Let's get 1,000 subscribers before the new year. I love you.